Coming up on this episode, I talk about dealing with the hand that life dealt you, kind of making do with what you've got and looking at things a little bit differently and just kind of break it down. I think it's an interesting one, so let's get into it. What's going on? This is the Perspective Chasing Podcast, and I'm your host, John. On this episode, I want to talk about making do, or making do with the hand that you're dealt, whichever way you want to frame it. Like that concept of working with what you've got, because that's all any of us can do. Uh, Getting comfortable with working with what you've got, and sometimes it means settling for less. Like sometimes you'll have an idea of grandeur or something great that you want to do or something massive that you want to do, and you have to settle for a lesser form of that to kind of get your way into it, or kind of learn some of the early stage lessons that you need to learn to kind of go deeper into it. So, for example, like I recently thought about going camping with my little one, and it was a great idea. I've got most of the stuff to have like a basic camping setup from when I used to go fishing, but I've never been in that kind of camping world or anything like that. So looking at camp spots and things like that, where to go and how much things are and everything else, it's sometimes overwhelming, but also disheartening because some of the places that I want to go are kind of unattainable at the minute. So then it kind of makes you feel defeated in a sense. That knocks your mindset, and that then trickles down a domino effect to low mood and da 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 da. But there are things that I could do. I could probably settle for a day's camping or whatever else, somewhere a bit closer to home, or like there's other things that I could do that would still almost scratch that itch. Maybe not as much as I wanted to, but it would at least give me part of that experience. And now that's just one example. Like how many instances in our life do we reach for the moon so we can touch up a few clouds? Like there's so many instances where we dream of grandeur, but we don't understand what that grandeur entails. So then you kind of got to go through that stage of humility and kind of figuring out where you are actually at, what is within your realm, no matter what aspect of life you're talking about, what can you achieve with the cards that you're dealt, and making do with that because they are the cards you have. They may change over time, but if you always make the best of whatever hand you're dealt, whether they're um, objectively good or bad cards, if you make the best of them, you're always going to win. And that's one of those tools in life that develops over time. It's something that you realize over time. It's never kind of in the moment realized and job done. Like it's always something that's kind of a slow burner, at least it is for me. And as always, there's multiple areas of life in which these problems show up in, and these tools need to be utilized. The podcast was another example. Like there's a level that I wanted it to be at and that I think it should be at and everything else. And then there's a level that I can do it. And sometimes I've got to settle for less, and that's fine. It's not to say that there's not going to be grandeur in the future, but it's part of the path to grandeur. And you don't find that out when you're on the other side of the fence thinking the grass is greener. You find that out when you're in the moment, when you're actually there putting in the work and learning the lessons firsthand. That's why I think there's a massive kind of disconnect between the theory and practical of life, where you can talk about something as much as you want or hypothesize or whatever else, but the reality of that situation, you'll deal with it far differently than you ever would if it was written in a textbook. So get out there and experience life. See what you can do with the cards that you're dealt. Sometimes it's not going to be much, but that's what you have to settle for and build your way up. It's so many instances in life. When I go back to my time as a personal trainer, people want to get stronger. Okay, well, you have to start at your weakest and build up. Nobody starts in the gym lifting the heavy old weights. Everybody starts somewhere. You just see them at a different point in their journey. So start your own journey. See where it takes you and build your own strengths in life. But that's always going to come with learning to deal with the hands that you're dealt. So to give you another example from my own life, when I first, not first got into training, but in my earlier years of training, I was a bigger guy. So I didn't have a defined physique or anything else, but I had strength, especially in my legs. And because that leg day was one of my favorite days, and it it allowed me to get into the gym because I had that comfort in going, okay, cool, I might not be the most ripped fella, but I'm strong as hell, and especially when it comes to my legs, I'll drop your jaw. So there was that comfort in which I had something to fall back on. So then the environment was a little bit more bearable. And then over time, when I did become a bit more defined, I stopped putting so much emphasis on my legs. I stopped enjoying legs so much and started enjoying upper body and other things more because I could see the benefits of those. But it all started somewhere where most people probably avoid, which is legs, at least in the gym. And that was my comfort zone. And then after a while of working with that, it led to other areas and so on and so on. But again, these are just parallels from life where the same situations happened over and over again. And by stepping back, I'm able to actually observe the behaviors of myself and the kind of cause and effect of it. And I see where I've made the best of the hands I've been dealt, and I've made poor decisions with the hands I've dealt. It's not a solid equation where I always come out on top. No, I've lost in many hands in life, but you take the lessons from it, so you still gain in the long run of it. Like you might lose the battle, but eventually you'll win the war if you're paying attention. But you have to pay attention, and by paying attention, you'll build your way out of it. By looking at the cards that you've got and seeing how you can work with them, you see what is actually within your realm of possibilities. Instead of living in the land of dream and wanting the things that you have no understanding or no comprehension of how to achieve or how to get to, but there is a way that you can enter the game, and it's just going to take a little bit of humility, and some of that humility will go a long way, and it is all part of that lesson. Again, there's going to be multiple aspects of life where you're going to have to learn this. I've had to learn it in multiple aspects of life. I'm still learning it in multiple aspects of life. But it's not to say that there's not improvements to be made while you're still learning. In that time when I was training in the gym and putting in the work on my legs, well, I was still improving my overall health, although I was working on one thing that I felt comfortable to work on because of the mentality behind it. It still benefited me physically by putting in that work. And then subsequently, in the long run, it got me out of that cycle of just wanting to do legs. And then I see the benefit of doing more upper body work and da da da. Eventually, I started to hate legs, and I wanted to do more upper body work because I wanted to chase that fraction of what I see. But then the reality of it is, if I'd have continued to train legs as hard as I was training upper body, again, it would have helped perpetuate that cycle and probably got me to where I wanted to be faster, or would have just got me there. But again, that's an example of where you could have done better with the hand that you dealt, but you didn't. And that's a learning curve in life. Now I'm at a different stage in life and I can look back on it. I can look to not make that mistake again if I get that hand again. But it's always kind of that case. You've just got to make do sometimes. And it's not the best thing to hear. It's not like, yay, I'm going to make do. But it is the truth. And there's very little disappointment you can have if you just settle into the idea of working with what you've got. At the end of the day, it's what you have to work with. Just figure out the best ways to work with it. And realistically, when you do that, you become far more, far more creative, far more innovative, sorry, I said that the wrong way. Far more kind of skilled at problem solving, because you don't just look for the straightforward path. You look at how things can work in other ways, how to make the most of each situation or each idea or each product or whatever it is, you look at it for more than what it is. And because you see it for more than what it is, you see more to it. You see more ways in which it can work. You see other applications for it. You see other uses for it. And that comes from being dealt poor hands. That comes by having to kind of take the back roads, kind of weave your way, bob and weave through life and kind of figure out how to kind of connect things that are kind of indirectly connected, but you've got to make segues or adaptations or whatever else. Like that ingenuity, that's the word that escaped me, that's valuable. And that's learned by learning to deal with the hands that you've got or learning to make do with what you've got. Because it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. Like there are countless stories of people that didn't necessarily have what they needed or didn't necessarily know what they needed. But then they put a few pieces together and they make something new. That's working with the hand that you've got to put out something that's never been seen before. How many other people have dealt with those same problems, those same ideas or those same products, and they've never put them together in such a way that somebody else has? But it takes one person to deal with that hand just a bit differently for something completely new to arise. You could be that person if you just learn to deal with the hand a little bit better. Take time in seeing each card of life for what it is, not just what it brings to the table, but what it could be, all of the value that it brings to life and subsequently the life of people around you. You may find a card of your life fairly useless that somebody else finds invaluable. So take the time to step back, look at things and find out what's the best way to make them work, not just for you, but for life, for the people around you, because there is a way. You just have to find it. You just have to have the creativity and the ingenuity and the out of the box thinking to find how to make it work. There's never no possibility. There's always some mad 1 in a trillion billion possibility that something can work. So be that 1 in a trillion billion, whatever it is. There's nothing to say that you cannot be that person. Everything is to say that it has to happen once. So why not be that opportunity? Why not let that 1 in a billion chance of success or 1 in a billion chance of invention or ingenuity or creativity or whatever it is, why not let that chance be your chance? Look at the cards differently, look at life differently, and make the absolute best of what you've got, because that's what life has given you. So do the best with it. On that note, I'm going to end this episode. The seed for this episode is going to be take some time out, see where you can kind of take a bit of time to make life a bit easier and slow down and actually give yourself that time to have the out of the box thinking, because we don't all have the time for it and it does take time. Life is hectic, but we need to take that time to step outside of life and see what we have to work with. It don't happen unless you take that time to step outside of it and stop the hustle and bustle for a second. So give yourself that rest and give yourself that time to think and figure it out. All the best, and I'll